Please, allow me. It will be easier.
Whoa, what are you doing?
Our minds, one and together.
Arguably, one of the all-time best directors is Stanley Kubrick, and out of his treasure trove of films, Dr. Strangelove is my favorite. Most people, when looking at the varied collection of his films, would say 2001: A Space Odyssey is his magnum opus, and I could agree. The movie is an achievement to marvel at, but is not very accessible, and was actually boring to me the first time I watched it. While I eventually grew to love it, 2001 can be hard to watch for people who are just looking for easy entertainment. Dr. Strangelove, on the other hand, is easy to get into, being one of Kubrick's shortest films and is much more fathomable. As a teenager, I could understand some of the socio-political context, but revisiting it as an adult brings a whole new meaning to it. The underlying inspiration for Dr. Strangelove was a book by Peter George called Red Alert, and is essentially about nuclear warfare at the start of World War III. Kubrick mirrored real-world agitation between the Soviet Union and the United States in his film. The Cold War was occurring at the time, which was a period of geopolitical tension between America and Russia. The term cold is used to describe the conflict because there was no outright fighting caused by the Cold War, with exception to smaller proxy wars. The conflict was all based on the two superpowers fighting for global influence after World War II, and the doctrine of mutually assured destruction discouraged a preemptive attack by either side. In essence, both countries had their finger ready on a button to launch nuclear weapons to blow up the fucking world. Kubrick used the plot of Red Alert, which was a serious thriller, and themes of horrifying real-world events to ironically create one of the best satirical comedies ever.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
The Cold War created a new breed of scientists and thinkers in the US. They called themselves Megadeth intellectuals. These thinkers are mimicked at the center of the plot for Dr. Strangelove, the most prominent being real-life nuclear strategist Herman Kahn. The movie has a warning stating that no characters portrayed in this film are meant to represent anyone living or dead, but I assume that's there for legal reasons. Because while there are many inspirations for the title character Dr. Strangelove, most people generally consider Herman Kahn as the main one. Kubrick was fascinated by Kahn's book on thermonuclear war. In it, he read about a doomsday machine, which was a system designed to annihilate the planet if a country ever decides to start a nuclear war. This doomsday device ends up as a major plot element in the ending of Dr. Strangelove. While the film is ultimately a comedy, it utilizes real war tactics to make it feel true to life, even to the extent that the government in the 60s changed policy so no one individual would have the complete code to unlock a nuclear weapon. Fundamentally, the movie is about an insane general who triggers a path to a nuclear holocaust that a war room full of politicians and military officials at the Pentagon desperately try to stop. Characters are so overemphasized to a hilarious level, creating great situational humor and one of the darkest comedies I've seen. Many names in the movie have double entendres to help exaggerate the characters in a funny way. There's not a great deal of movies that I can honestly say I enjoy all the personalities, from communist-hating General Ripper to patriotic Major Kong. Plenty actors in the movie have great performances, but Peter Sellers gives one of a lifetime, playing not one, but 3 different characters, and was subsequently the first actor to be nominated for an Academy Award in a film portraying multiple people. Sellers utilizes 3 different accents, and his comedic performance of Dr. Strangelove, a reformed Nazi fighting his alien hand syndrome, still makes me crack up. I wasn't the only one laughing at his performance. You could tell the actors were having a hard time holding it in on set as well. The movie has a really great script, with witty dialogue and many tongue-in-cheek moments throughout. The phone calls between the president and Soviet premier bickering over the situation are just great. Dr. Strangelove features one of the most inventive titles ever made for a movie, and an iconic scene of Major Kong riding the bomb. I also love the set design, specifically the war room, because even though the movie is black and white, Kubrick wanted the table to be green, so the actors would feel like they're playing a game of poker over the world's fate. Dr. Strangelove originally was going to have an ending involving a pie fight between the Americans and Russians, which I think would have been too over the top, but the ending as it stands now is one of my favorites of all time and the cherry on top to a great film, including an amazing score choice of We'll Meet Again to create a very somber moment of watching the world die.
I have a plan. Monsieur! I can walk!
I believe Dr. Strangelove is a good way to laugh at humans, but a stark warning of the worst side of us. The best humorous example I think perfectly exemplifies human thoughtlessness is Captain Mandrake trying to use a payphone without enough money to inform the president of an important deactivation code that will save the world. I think Dr. Strangelove is not only one of the greatest movies of all time, but also one of the greatest satires. The social commentary is still relevant. Sadly, mankind hasn't matured much in 60 years. The threat of nuclear war is still prevalent, and the inciting incident was caused by the general believing in a conspiracy theory that was around in the 50s and probably still is today. Many aspects, while being a comedy, are true to life. The characters are based on real people, and certain scenarios most likely could have played out. The writing makes this movie a substantial social commentary because the film's satirical humor is presented with little need for cynicism, creating a much more honest view of the characters. In 1989, the United States Library of Congress included Dr. Strangelove as one of the first 25 films selected for film preservation in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Satire is an important genre, as it has a long tradition as an acceptable form of political critique. More often, a critic of any political regime will have an easier time presenting his views under the veil of comedy than as a rejection of the ruling powers. At the end of World War II, George Orwell, an English novelist, predicted the Cold War. In an essay titled You and the Atomic Bomb, he contemplated a world living in the shadow of the threat of nuclear war. He warned of a peace that is no peace, which he called a permanent Cold War. This is how the Cold War got its name, and shows exactly why social commentary is so needed by humans, as long as we internalize and learn from it. Dr. Strangelove is mainly a critique of mutually assured destruction, which is one of the most devastating war tactics out there. This film wasn't my first introduction to satire, but it was the first to make me take a second look at the meaning behind the commentary and ultimately make me love the genre. I think satire is extremely important to humans as a civilization, because in a world that has become progressively more sensitive, I believe conversation of difficult issues and differing opinions is the only way for us to move forward and survive as a species.